So in this case, I'm going to make the decision to cut this leader about here, and I'm going to pull up some small segment of lammus growth, and I'm going to eliminate 2 competing buds within 2 inches of the top. So I've removed competing buds within 2 inches of the top. I'm going to tie this small segment of lammus growth to become the new leader, and then the branches below that will form a false swirl next season. It's best to leave a space of about 2 finger widths between the lammus growth that you're wanting to be the top and the next lowest buds. These buds down here will hopefully form a false swirl next season that will look like this. This is where a piece of vertical lammus growth was cut last season, and we cut to an outpointing branch or bud to form a whorl. Here we have an example of cutting to a bud last season that became very nice vertical leader this year. Below that we have false whorl buds that became branches, stayed as branches last season. So we have a nice terminal false whorl below. We have to make a decision on the length of the leader to leave for this next growing season. We have a pretty dense tree down below, so we can afford to leave a little bit longer leader than we might leave otherwise, but we've got a bare spot in here that's going to take time to fill. So on this particular leader, I'm going to make a decision to cut here. I'm going to use this lammus piece of growth on the other side, and I'm going to eliminate buds again within about 2 finger lengths of that top. Every time we cut to a bud on the top, it does not necessarily become an upright vertical leader the next season. Here's an example of a more branch-like leader that's starting to form, but it's a branch in this section. So we're going to want to keep this fairly short and pull it up and cut it to an existing bud. The solution here, since we have a situation where we have a branch that wants to be fairly horizontal before it turns into a leader, is to fix a stick, and I'm going to use some cable ties to help pull it over. It's important to remove these after 1 growing season, but it's fairly simple to, you can use twist ties or flagging tape as well to do this part of the job. I'm going to hold this gently into a vertical position, tie it with a cable tie, then I'm going to identify a spot to cut. So here I'm going to cut to this bud right here, and it's a bud that's not become lammus. I have 2 finger lengths between these lammus growth below, and whenever I cut the leader, I also trim the upper whorl. Otherwise, it's going to form a competing top. It's important, if you're using the cable ties to tie up a new top, to take them out after 1 growing season. Here's an example of ones that were left in for an additional growing season, and they're starting to kill the top of this tree. The solution is going to be to trim this out and hope the tree survives. Here's an example of a tree that we've been attempting to make into a tabletop tree, a shorter tree. And last year we cut the lammus growth, so in this case we have 2 buds forming nice branches. In this case we were probably a little too vigorous and only allowed 1 bud to survive. So better to leave this a little longer last year. But since it's a smaller tree, we're trying to fill in this segment in here, and on this side we're going to not allow the leader to be very long. So I'm going to cut this one to a lammus growth right here. So I've identified this piece of lammus growth as my new top for this next season. So I'm going to cut out the existing top. Here we have 2 horizontal lammus growth that will be branches next season. I'm going to tie this one into a vertical position with some flagging tape. And this will become my new top.